definitely. Well, hopefully they fix it and you can fend them off so they do no further damage.
Yeah.
I have some books I got to get to that mice have been trying to get to, and it's been kind of, it's not pleasant. But I put some stuff down to hopefully get rid of them. But I'm still going through the books, so it's just they will drive you nuts. But that's not here. That's at the other place where I used to live. So. Well, I don't like to, whack things, but when they start messing with the books,
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna go John Wick on you. you know. But my week's been long. May 2nd, my dog Jack passed away, and he was 16. And I just wanted to say a little bit about him to give him a shout out to the grave, so to speak. When I found him, he was in a fence behind a house, and it was really hot, and he had fleas really bad. And I said, I'm going to break you out of here, because I knew he didn't need to be there. So I broke him out, and then I ended up with him, and because the people didn't want him anymore for some reason. I have no idea why. He's such a great dog. I never had any trouble. The only problems were at the end when he was, using the restroom and stuff. That was annoying, but that's part of the job when you get an older dog like that. So I dealt with it. But other than that, he was always great with all that kind of stuff. But anyway, he would have seizures. And I don't know if he had them maybe from the sun, from being out there. But I would hold him and cry when he had seizures. And it was just sad to watch him go through it. And I would pray for those to go away. And the last, for a long time, he hasn't had them, but he was getting older, and you could tell. And maybe he had stuff going on that we didn't, exactly know it was happening from all that damage from seizures and stuff. And he just 16 years, and you've seen a picture of him smiling. He just had such personality. He was with me in Silver Lake all the time when I was pretty much a hermit. He was with me all the time. We'd walk the trails, so it was just rough. But he was free from pain, so that is a good thing. And it was strange because I thought he was going to pass away. And I started crying and bawling outside and praying, oh no, please don't let him. And I saw a weird light flash in the sky, like a paintbrush. And I see those a lot lately when I ask for signs. I don't know what they are. It's a shooting star or something showing me it's there. I'm not really sure, but it's weird and different for sure. Because it looks like a paintbrush in the sky really fast, kind of like a shooting star, but I'm not sure if that's what it is. But I had that happen when I first thought he was going to pass away. So he hung around for a week or so. And I think he did that to say goodbye, because you could tell when he would come up, his face would kind of shine, and the rest of them was just kind of like a corpse pretty much. But as far as I know, Christina had said something like, I'm going to take care of him, meaning me, and he winked at her. And he would do stuff like that was just weird and uncanny. So it's like there was more to him. Well, I'm sure this is true with every dog. But I think they're really more advanced than we think they are. Maybe they still are when they're in the body, but maybe limited some like we are. But the point is, I started giving him a dropper and stuff and trying to give him milk and water and stuff like that because I felt bad because he wouldn't eat. So I didn't do it that much, but a little bit. But his jaw started to lock, so it was harder to do. Maybe that was him just rejecting it or just whatever setting in. But I put him in his place where he slept, and I had gone to Ripley's that day, and I told him, if you have to go, go. I love you. And I told him I love you so many times I've lost count. And we put on well music for him. That played, and then when I came home, he was gone. And it was strange because that weird well music CD was skipping like weird as heck, and he was dead. And of course, I cried for 3 or 4 days. Today I haven't, surprisingly. And I cry sometimes, but not a lot. The gates opened up, that's for sure. So hopefully that helped my fat heart in some way, for sure. But anyway, I'm burying him Tuesday in Graceville. I don't know what's going on here where I'm staying. If we're going to, some things could change with moving with her later in the future. I don't really know. But I'm going to take him to Graceville. He's in the deep freeze, which creeps me out. I can't stand that he's there, but I need to take him to Graceville. That's where I know his grave will always be, and I can visit whenever I want. Here could be up in the air, so I didn't want to do that. So that's what I'm going to do Tuesday. And that's it. That's the story of Jack. He was like a son to me. And hopefully he becomes a dog man and visits us somehow or something. I don't know. I hope I'll see him in the afterlife. I'd like to think I will. Sometimes I'm thinking that he might be here now because there's been some weird little things happening. It's like, is he still in the house? Can he visit? So many questions. And I just don't want him to incarnate again and get to some a-hole or go somewhere where they eat dogs or something. So hopefully he's waiting on the Rainbow Bridge. That's what I'm hoping. And like I read from some online, some preacher or something, he said that heaven's everything you ever want. So why wouldn't your dog be there? So I hope that's true. So, right, if heaven's you being happy about every freaking thing, which maybe it is not that, but regardless, hopefully he's there. So that's the story of Jack, and I just want to give him a tribute, a memorial, if you can. And that's it. Thank you. And tonight's guest, bro, please don't feed the Sasquatch. That's Lilith Gray. How you doing, Lilith? Good to have you here.
Hey guys, I'm excited to be here.
So I'm looking on Amazon, and your book, you have really good reviews. You have 22. Mine has I have a Bigfoot book myself. It has 15. And it's got 4 stars still, though, somehow, so that's good. But you really got some good praise for your book. I guess give us a little background on what made you write this book. It was actual experiences, correct?
Yeah. I kind of got, you'll have to excuse me. I'm so sorry. Of course, you get ready to go on a talk show, and I lose my voice. That's how it goes. But basically, we moved out into property that family had been on for years, and we started having these bizarre experiences that were, if you use regular, like it's another animal or it's something like that, nothing was making sense. So we just kind of went through this journey where we discovered that they were Sasquatch, that there's a lot of them, that they have a regular pattern of visiting us. They like Oreos. They don't like bananas. So we've kind of, through the years, we've built this relationship with these people, and it's been the highlight of my life in a lot of ways. And what kind of drove me to it is I've always loved to write, and I felt so alone in the beginning. So I thought if I could, put down my experiences and somebody else like I was that was searching for someone in the same situation, to kind of support people, I guess, in a way. And then to let people that are just curious about the subject look at it in maybe a different way than it's usually presented, like the Bigfoot horror film and books. So I was kind of trying to show a different side of them, I guess.
And what was your initial experience? What was that like, your first experience?
Well, it was kind of funny because I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but when I get curious about something in my life or I start thinking about it, whether it's ghosts, Bigfoot, whatever, it tends to kind of bring itself to me. And I had just started, I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. So when I was cleaning the house or taking care of the baby, I would let YouTube kind of roll, and I happened to catch this documentary about Sasquatch one day. And I used to read everything I could get my hands on when I was a child about Bigfoot, So this documentary came on, I actually sat down to watch it. And then more Bigfoot kept rolling through YouTube, and I'm like, wow, So they had mentioned this woman. I had listened to her being interviewed, and she lived next to a really large city. So I bought her books and started reading them, and I was like, whoa, this is happening right in a very populated area. And I'm thinking, well, where we live, where there's nobody, there's a big chance they could be out here too. So I just had done a little bit of research, and my husband had brought another podcast to my attention. So it's almost like sometimes I feel like I kind of drew him in, brought him to me, I guess. When I get curious about something, that tends to happen.
And I know in your book you mentioned some of the languages that you've heard from them sounds very Native American, and you said something about a goodie basket, and I mean, it's gotten to that level where you're leaving things for them and stuff like that, and they say thank you.
Yeah, actually, I went out right before I got online with you guys, and I delivered some apples and peaches out to them. Um, I get the food out there. I let them know it's out there, and then it depends on where they are. Um, sometimes I hear them walk right up, and I just kind of I try to maintain a respectful distance with them. I don't want them to feel like I'm trying to corner them into anything. It's anything other than just a gift, and we exchange gifts. So I think we've got a pretty good level of trust built up. So I'm always like super careful not to jeopardize that. And yeah, so they, it's so funny that the experiences that we've had with them, um, there's been times that I've been absolutely terrified. And I mean, I think that once I got into it more and I started to realize they have abilities that people don't. Well, I heard you on a podcast the other day with Russell, and you were talking about how you went into a chat room and you mentioned woo, and everybody freaked out on you, right? they're like, oh, they don't have paranormal abilities, and they do. They absolutely do, and it's so hard to voice that without people automatically like discounting your experience. But when you've had the ability to communicate with them, whether they're in the physical vicinity or not, I mean, I know it's possible because I've done it. So it's just kind of an incredible subject, really. Leads you to all sorts of other things.
Well, yeah, I've had people threaten to beat me up for saying Bigfoot's paranormal on like groups, Bigfoot groups and stuff like that. Like they said they'd physically come get me just because I said Bigfoot was paranormal. Of course, I'm pretty sure I said something probably very smart ass back to them afterwards, and blocked them or something. But yeah, I've seen that in groups and stuff. It's weird. It's like, I don't understand it, but it's like, paranormal to me is the unknown. And if you don't believe in paranormal, well, everyone dies and you're getting ejected to the paranormal regardless, right? You're getting catapulted into the unknown at death. So I don't get it. It's an oxymoron, but mostly it's morons, I guess. But yeah.
There was you were talking about the reviews on the book, and I've had to it's not that I have thin skin, but I was fully aware of what I was about to do because I had been researching Bigfoot, so I saw the way that they go after people in the groups. You have a lot of people that are open-minded, they have an open heart, and they kind of know what's going on. But then you have this other group of people that are ready to just take you to the mat if you dare insinuate that they're anything other than Gigantopithecus remnant, and it's crazy. I had a woman, she was enraged with me because I said they were human. And I was like, but they are. They're a sapient being, and we are the only sapient beings. You have sentient beings, but not sapient. And it was just like, wow, she was ready to just take me down because, I said they're human, and they are. They're not an animal in the sense that, I mean, it's like you were talking about your dog, and I'm so sorry for your loss, too, because I understand. It's like losing a member of your family, and we love them and we value them.
Yes.
But when you're looking at it, these are people. This is not some, it's pretty incredible the way that people attack you. And I was expecting that. So, and I don't, honestly, this is one of the first podcasts I've done. Because I do tend to just kind of put it out there and just let it be,
And definitely, there's so many different theories on them. I've heard that there's some, I know Kawani Laparitis says that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently there's some that are kind of more ape-like, and then there are others that are kind of more human, and he calls them, I don't know what he calls them. One's like ancient ones. There's so many different theories, who knows what's what, but I know that. Do you think there's different types, or do you think it's just one kind?
I do think there are different types, and there's a lot of reasons I think that. Um, I really studied up on as much history as I could find. The older, the better. Um, I studied on the native connections. Um, and there's a certain town in Alaska that was basically abandoned because, according to them, they were being attacked all the time, like children dragged away, kind of thing. I do know that most of the time, it seems like they're here through June, they leave, and then they return September, October. So they've kind of set that pattern. And I happened to be outside last summer, and my husband's like, "Come here." He's hearing them, but they're not supposed to be here. So I'm like, okay, either I'm wrong, and they're always here, which would be really rather strange because they tend to communicate when they're here, or this is another tribe, another group. And so we were out there, and he said, "Call to them." So I did. I called to them like I would the clan that I interact with, and they called back. And I said, "Well, you call to him and see what happens." And he called to him, and it was like the woods blew up. There were roars and trees being broke. And so I'm trying to establish that connection in my head with, the clan that I talk to. And I'm like, "Is this you guys? What's going on?" And I got a very strong no go in the house. So I said, "Come on, let's go," And I know that sounds absolutely crazy to the people that maybe haven't experienced this. And I'm a lot more vocal about telling people exactly what I experienced because I need to be brave so that others feel comfortable sharing their experiences and putting that out there, that they're capable of these things.
Well, one person I've interviewed before, Stan Gordon, when it comes to Sasquatch and UFOs, he's just right in your face with some cases that are very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's Pennsylvania, Stan Gordon. But yeah, that's a good one to look up if you've never heard of Stan Gordon. But he's a very, I have a lot of his books. Well, I have all of his books, but definitely some great cases involving Bigfoot and UFOs. And I think there's even evidence of stuff. There's definitely some in-depth stuff from him. You can just look him up anywhere. Stan Gordon. He's been around for many moons indeed. But
Definitely check that out.
yeah, it's definitely worth it. And Kawani Leporitis, another, a lot of strange take on Sasquatch. He had the book Psychic Sasquatch. He has Sasquatch people, and definitely, I've seen some of his seminars. He definitely, he gets into portals and all kinds of weird stuff. So he definitely, in your face paranormal for sure.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah. And neither of them care about what anyone else thinks, probably, as far as the little, freaks in little Facebook groups. For sure.
Right.
But definitely. So you have two volumes of this, right? And both have been pretty successful.
Yeah. I just launched the second one about 2 weeks ago, and I also released all the audio I have. I've only recorded them one night.
Yes.
So, and I still have more that I have to, edit and get out there. But if you look at just like the whole of all the audio in one night, I swear they were having a wedding or something was going on out there that night. And I was lucky because I captured several pieces of like actual language. There's a little, I can't remember. Let me think. It's on YouTube, and it's the video called Poor Bunny. And it's like 2 minutes, 25 seconds in. You can hear a little boy talk. And I mean, it's like they're singing songs in the woods as a large group. And I think that was several clans that year that, like, when I put the apples out there, I invited them in and they were like, "Woohoo, the gang's all here." And they had quite the party. And to catch all of that and to hear them sing songs together, they have to have a culture. They have to have, that amazed me so much to hear them sing together.
I've heard some of the Ron Moorhead stuff, and it's kind of like that, a lot of whooping, but it's like kind of tribal. And I know he is.
Yeah.
I've interviewed Ron Moorhead. He has the book Quantum Bigfoot, and he definitely has been on Coast to Coast and stuff. But he's got some great audio, and some of it does seem, like that, like it's a tribe.
And I couldn't even begin to repeat the little word the boy said, but he was saying it, and then they said it in the song. So it means something to them. And then there was one Sasquatch that was really ticked off at a coyote, I think, because you can hear it. And that was called the Coyote Conversation. And he shouts a word that sounds like he's saying Emotep or Emotop. I mean, it's very clearly language. And I actually quote Ron Moorhead from that book that you just mentioned, The Quantum Bigfoot, in Volume 2 in the introduction, because he's the one that talks about the language, that how big of a deal this is that they have a spoken language, So, yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah,
That's awesome you got to interview him.
And have you visually seen them ever, or did you just hear them? Has it ever been visual?
We've had many, many visual sightings. Some of my favorites have been, I got home after a late shift one night, and I'm walking down the sidewalk, and the one I call Big Daddy, he's the one that I have the closest relationship to, that I've stood 3 feet from. He starts honking like a goose, and he's running at me, like bluff charging me, very close. And I dropped my purse and everything on the sidewalk, and he had turned around and ran away from me. So I started chasing him. We were running around the garage. He's peeking at me, and they not only have the ability to speak, they also have the ability to laugh. I mean, it sounds like a human laugh, just much deeper and scratchier, and it's pretty incredible to hear. It's like I say in one of the books, it's the neatest sound I've ever heard, right up there with my kids' first cries, It gives me chills to think about it. And we were like goofing off and chasing each other and laughing. So I do have pretty close experiences with them. There's been times that they goof up just like we do. Like in the woods, you step on a stick and you sound like an elephant chopping through there, and I'll get giggling at them when they're trying to be quiet. I've stood 3 feet from one in my front yard. I was walking my dog, and he was right next to me before I even realized it, because they are usually very quiet for their size. Yeah, I mean,
you said there were some times that you were scared of them, or of, I know, obviously there's crazy people that have said stuff about woo stuff to you, but when you said you were scared, did you mean with the Bigfoot?
Yeah. We had an incident right as I was figuring everything out. And I had been really calm about it because they had shown me just nothing but they were kind. I mean, it didn't seem like I had anything to be afraid of. Like, before we knew what was going on, I'd actually chased one with a gun, not realizing what I was chasing, because they're darker than night. Something's getting my chickens. I go out there to protect the chickens, thinking I'm going to deal with the raccoon, and see the handle of the chicken coop being opened, and just see this large black mass. And I'm like, what is going on, But the particular thing that scared me was during that same time frame I had captured those recordings, they had tried to get in the house. And it turned out later, I had figured out, it was pretty sure it was one of the kids. And they were after something in particular in the house, but it scared the snot out of me, I mean, my husband isn't always here at night, so due to his job. So I'm here alone with 2 children, little children at that time, and it was terrifying because I didn't know what the heck to do. I don't want to hurt them, but they're trying to get in the house. And you read all those stories of, like we were talking about, the different species and what you're dealing with, and there's Native American legends about cannibalism and all these things. So that's just running through my mind, and yeah, it was pretty terrifying.
And I know you had mentioned this as a pen name, and was that because you didn't want some of these people to, you felt like you were just a dangerous situation? I understand that for sure, just from what I've had happen to
Hmm.
me when I told my story. So, I mean, have you come
Right.
across something like that, or is that just something you're just being careful?
I'm being super careful. Like I said, I have younger children, so I don't want someone to harass them. It is also for the protection of my friends because I don't want somebody to think they're going to get rich and walk out. And most likely, even if somebody did try to come after them, knew who I was, knew where they were, and they're not like they'll go hunt somewhere for a week, come back. I mean, they're not always like sitting in my backyard in a lawn chair or something, but
Yeah.
I was afraid that somebody would, think they were gonna. We actually had an event that happened about a month and a half ago that kind of worried me a little bit. We had my husband. We had filled the basket that day, and they usually come and eat it that night, and then I go clean up the trash. Um, and my husband was in the garage working, and he heard it was probably Big Daddy roaring. And when they roar, you feel it in your chest, like your chest wall contracts. It's insane. So he had walked out of the back of the garage because he's like, "What is going on?" And then he heard them running through the woods, like a large group. They move in a group usually at night like that. And it's like 15 seconds after the roar came out of the woods, then my husband hears a helicopter. And when we went out, like first thing in the morning, he tells me about it. I go out there and look. There's the apples and different things we had left and they hadn't eaten, but the apples had these little like I don't know, maybe a 3-year-old Bigfoot bite out of it, just dropped. So they were at the basket. They heard the helicopter. He roared in warning, and they took off. So I've heard stories that kind of indicate that they are hunted in a way, So I was like, oh no, I don't know. It could have just been a random helicopter, but I worry about their safety. I worry about my family's safety. I don't want people harassing us or them. So from the get, I have always used the pen name.
And you have to wonder what the government knows about them. I'm sure it knows more than they'll ever admit or whatever. I don't know what they know, but I've heard different stories about people seeing them at military bases and weird stuff, or soldiers
Right.
seeing them, things like that, for sure. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
always
100% agree.
curious to that angle from their perspective, what they know about them, or do they try to capture them and do weird stuff to them? Who knows? But it wouldn't surprise me at this point. I know there's a lot of
Neither.
connections with the missing 411, and I've interviewed David Pilates quite a few times, and there's all kinds of different theories to what those missing people are happening to them. But I have heard stories of
Mm-hmm.
rogue Bigfoot and stuff like that, and other things of alien nature. But I
Mm-hmm.
know when I interviewed David, I had a written question on Examiner, and I asked about Bigfoot for missing 411, and he wrote me back. He said, Jeff, you can't ask that. And he said, I can't tell families that. But he kind of alluded that there was
Wow.
possibly he didn't want to, tell people that had lost loved ones that it was Bigfoot, which that makes sense. But he kind of
Right.
alluded that it wasn't, don't rule it out either, in kind of a way.
Right.
So there may be
And
some,
yeah.
not to say all Bigfoot are like that, but I've heard stories of weird, rogue ones. There's some weird story in Kawani's book about one that was a rogue one, and all the other good ones put it in a cave with antifreeze or something, which I don't know if that's true or not, but I read
Oh.
that in one of his books. But of course, that's
Wow.
pretty
Yeah.
far out. But who knows? I mean, just like with humans, there may be, crazy ones that, cannibals, like in the stories of native folklore and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do you think, Wham? And you've heard some dark Bigfoot stories, but mostly they're pretty good, though, it seems.
Well, I live up, as you know, I live up in the Hudson Valley, and I when I first moved here, I didn't know that they had Bigfoot stuff and quite a big history, long history of it. And I knew that they had like a UFO history and ghosts, but I didn't know about the Bigfoot / cryptid sort of end of it. And then in I guess it would have been 2013. I think it was 2013. I had a Bigfoot sighting. Which I've talked about on the show before. One of the classic where it runs across the road in front of you, and it clearly can't be anything else. I mean, what idiot human being is 9 foot tall and going to be wearing a furry suit and running upright across a road at 10 o'clock at night in pitch darkness in a very rural area? It's not going to be a person. It certainly can't be a bear. But that's when I was introduced to Gail Beatty, who is the Bigfoot researcher person here in the Hudson Valley. And I've found out all kinds of things about him. So it seems like, as far as we know, as far as we can tell, most of the people around here who have experiences of Bigfoot or whatever it is, they're benign or generally positive, but it depends. It really depends. The ones here really, really, really don't like cameras or a lot of recording electronic equipment. You have to be sneaky. Like what Gail has started doing is wearing these goggles that Coleman makes that have these cameras that are built into them. And so you can just kind of put them on and walk around without looking like you're holding anything, like a camera or anything that will take a picture. And then you can go home and look at that footage, or I guess it's not really footage, I guess, because it's digital, but whatever it is, second by second to see if anything shows up. And sometimes things do show up. There are all kinds of weirdly weird things that show up, like 1 second they're there and the next second they're not, that kind of stuff. But one thing that she has found very, very useful to do, even though they don't really like cameras very much, they don't seem to mind some of the other electronic stuff. So like she now goes out to places where people are reporting and take some of the equipment that like ghost hunters take, spirit boxes and that kind of stuff. And she's gotten EVP off of some of these sites. I don't know if they're ghosts or what they are, or Bigfoot. I have no idea. But it's like in broad daylight, in these open fields, you'll get something saying very clear things. I mean, I've actually heard her recordings of it. I've been present when this has happened, and it'll say things like, the voices will like give warnings about certain highways or certain accidents that might occur, or it's just weird. I mean, it's just kind of creepy. But it's not like negative in the sense that no one's being attacked. The only things that seem to be attacked here sometimes are animals, sometimes deer. And sometimes other animals, like domestic animals. So there's one of the ways in which we can tell, or that Gail can tell that it's Bigfoot and not just, because we also have bear and a few other things, that it's Bigfoot and not something else like that, is the way in which domestic animals sort of react around places where it's, where the sightings have been. And I know, Jeffrey, that I talk about this in the book that I wrote about the Hudson Valley, and I very clearly link Bigfoot to, or at least in terms of the area in which we live. We live in, the Hudson Valley is an area where you have everything. You have lots of ghosts. You have all kinds of UFO and other types of things like that. And then you also have cryptids of various types, Bigfoot, but also some of the other cryptids that people have been talking about from time to time. And there is an indigenous, native tradition about some of this stuff as well. The Bigfoot type creature that they talk about, they called Masinkwe, and he was understood as the guardian of the forest, and it was important to maintain a good relationship with him in order that the forest would be a relatively safer place. But you had to maintain that relationship. Sometimes people do report certain kinds of aggressive behavior, but it seems to be more related to the kind of person that they're interacting with than that, because other than that, they appear to be kind of retiring. Like if you go out, if like a whole bunch of people go out looking for them, like they do in some of those stupid Bigfoot shows, television shows, you're not going to find anything. They're just not going to show up. What changed Gail's opinion, she thought for a long time that it was just a large physical animal, and that was it. The sort of, and there was nothing paranormal or weird connected to it at all. And then she had an experience one evening where she and a bunch of people, some Bigfoot folks from Massachusetts, came over, and they had like a FLIR camera, and they cornered what appeared to be a bunch of them, at least 5 of them, in this one kind of hollow area by a stream in the close to where the owner of the property had been having a bunch of experiences, and it was like all hell broke loose. The FLIR does capture, and I've seen the footage, it does capture 5 distinct signatures of something in the darkness. But they were very angry, apparently, about being trapped, about being sort of cornered, and they completely destroyed those woods. We're talking like woods with large trees, and they were pulling the trees down, snapping them off, throwing stuff, throwing rocks. And then the guys, it was only the guys mostly, got hit with, they can only call some kind of infrasound or vibration or something, because all of a sudden the guys started getting, they said what it felt like was that all of a sudden they felt very hot and like a bunch of vibrations, and 2 of them got really sick, like pretty instantly. But Gail and the other female friends were not affected so much by it, but it ended up driving them back into the house. And one guy, the guy who'd held the FLIR, who'd captured the images of them, was sick for hours, like throwing up sick, almost like he'd been hit with radiation of some type. It was very strange. And they went out the next morning and they took photos of the damage to the woods, and that I actually have one of those photos in my book. We're talking like large trees were like pulled up and torn out, and it was just because they were pissed. So it really depends on how they're treated and what they feel like, what I do is if I go to the woods, I just follow what my native indigenous teachers have told me to do. It's like, if you go to the woods around here, you put tobacco offerings out, you announce yourself, and you try not to go out by themselves. Even during indigenous times, people very rarely went out into the forest by themselves. If they did, it was usually because they had to for some reason, or it was like a vision quest thing. Usually even hunters went out in at least pairs. because it was just not considered safe. Because I mean, not only because there were just plain old wild animals around, but because as my Mohican elder told me, the woods are not your home. The woods are where other people live. They're the houses of other folks. So you're going into somebody else's house. So it's important to be polite and to understand that, so that if you accidentally trod into somebody's territory, you can say I'm sorry and get the hell out. So that's sort of how it is in the Hudson Valley.
Thanks. That's a good tell for sure. That's about the I know the original Bigfoot story was like them stomping around a construction site doing stuff where they got the name Bigfoot. Like, I don't remember the details, but the old ass story, where they named it Bigfoot, was like a weird story, like where they threw barrels or something like that.
Right.
They messed up a construction site, and they called it Bigfoot. So it seems like it's neat to know that that environmental, they probably get mad when people start building stuff on their houses, like construction and stuff. So that's a neat angle. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. What is it? The Letters from the Big Man. It's a Bigfoot movie that I've interviewed Christopher Noel, but that Lily, what's her name? She's in American Horror Story. Lily Rave's in it. It's a pretty weird movie about Bigfoot, but there's some strange things in it about the government and Bigfoot going quantum and stuff. But for sure. So Lilith, you say that, do you have native roots yourself? I know you mentioned the Cherokee a lot and everything, and you think for sure they're native. Sounds like they're a tribe to me, of some weird lost tribe or something. Maybe they're not lost, but they're a tribe.
Actually, I do have Native American ancestry. I'm not 100%. Most of it, I have it on both sides, but most of it comes from my mother's side of the family. And it's kind of interesting because my grandma recently passed, but my grandma was a very native-looking individual. And whenever grandma was over, they were always up in the grill, at the edge of the woods, kind of peeking. And they seemed fascinated by her in a lot of ways. So I really love what Wham was talking about, because I think that is, they can feel a person's intentions. I really believe that. They react very differently to different company I've had. At first, I swear they liked to torture my husband. He would be peeing in the backyard, and all hell would break loose in the woods, and they'd break branches and throw trees, and like kind of what you're talking about, just on a smaller scale. They like to mimic our voices as well, and they would love to mess with him and make him like come over somewhere thinking I'm yelling for him, and it's not me, I'm in the house. And but she's exactly right, because it is their home, and I always treat it as such. And I always remember that when I'm out there, and I've always had kind of a reverence for the woods anyway, because the nature's like, the best thing to get out there and just like get away from all the crazy in our civilization, just step away from it. And I always consider that their home. So I haven't had any I've been hit with infrasound myself, and I detail that right at the beginning of the second book, because that night they were trying to come in the house, I actually went for a weapon. They couldn't have seen me. I'm in the house. They're outside the house, but they knew what I was doing. So there's a way that I didn't know what it was. I had vaguely recalled seeing things about that. But when I went for the weapon in my closet is when I thought I was going to puke. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't remember how to load it. And that was what made that night even more terrifying, was they were coming. I think it was one of the little kids on the back porch and trying to like scrape at the door and everything. But I felt so helpless because I couldn't do anything, and I don't ever want to have that feeling again. I've never had it again. But they knew what I was doing in the house. And my plan wasn't, of course, to go out with guns blazing. It was to sit and wait and see what happened, because to me that would be like shooting another human being. And I'm very tenderhearted. That was not what I wanted to do, but I felt I was terrified. I didn't know why they wanted in the house at that time. So yeah, I mean, it's been quite the ringer, but now we're on the other side of it, and I'm just enjoying planting an orchard for my family and theirs, you know, and kind of having just this coexistence with them.
So, how does your husband take all this? I mean, is he open to it, or is he like, oh, what's going on with this? Well, how
Well,
is he with it all?
oh my gosh, they love to mess with him, especially in the beginning. It was like they were daring him to react aggressively. And like even before we knew what was going on, he'd be in the kitchen in the middle of the night, and something would come up and slam the window, and he'd turn around and then run to the window, and he can't see anything. You know, he's like, "What is going on?" Or it'd roar at him. So at first, he never, when I was going through all this by myself, he never said, "I don't believe you" or anything. He supported me, but at the same time, there was that reluctance to acknowledge that exactly what I was saying was actually happening. So he was, and I asked them, I'm like, please, will you please show yourself to him so I'm not alone in this and I don't feel crazy. And I will never forget, and I detail that in the second book a lot, watching him see Big Daddy for the first time from 60 feet away is also one of the best moments of my life, because he couldn't talk. He was cussing and talking gibberish at the same time and pointing like a little kid. And we were in the house, Big Daddy was in the backyard, and it was the best. And it was complete and utter vindication for me, for him to see. There was no denying he was looking straight at a Bigfoot, and that's what I needed. And I just waved at him. I'm like, thanks, you know, because yeah. So he's much more relaxed with them now. Now, they still don't seek interaction when he's home most of the time. You know, I think that they look at the males. It's like what Wham was saying. You know, they're pelting the males with the rocks. I think they have a more animalistic view of that, you know, but so, yeah, it's good now.
Are there other people in your area that are seeing them as well, like neighbors and stuff?
My neighbors have had Ivy. I talk about our friendship in the book and how she helped me get through all this. She's had experiences. She's never got to actually full on see them like I have, but she'll catch a glimpse, or they're roaring, or they're hitting the side of her house. And it's so funny that you asked that, because it was like 3 days ago, a friend of Ivy's left her home, and it's right across the road from mine. And my daughters had just went in the backyard. We were all like planning stuff and playing and, you know, making a lot of noise. So this friend of hers is starting to leave our road and going down the road, calls Ivy, and she's yelling, "I just saw a Bigfoot! I just saw a Bigfoot!" You know, freaking out. And I told Ivy, I said, it's probably coming. I heard the kids outside, and it's coming to watch them. The neighbor children will talk on the bus about playing with Bigfoot in the woods in front of my daughter. There's been trail cam. Like, people were talking about there was a bear out here. It wasn't a bear, I'm pretty sure, because when they run on, like, they go down on their knuckles and run, they look more like a bear. I mean, if you know what you're looking at, you know, but if you're trying to, like, talk yourself out of what you've seen, it could be a bear. And another neighbor's teenage son was hunting last fall and asked his dad, he said, "I saw a bear, but it wasn't a bear." He's like, "It stood up and ran for a long time." So he's talking to his brother, another neighbor, about it. And he said, "Don't you remember Grandma and Grandpa talking about the hill people? And leave them alone. They're hill people." So, you know, and I mean, you think Grandma or Grandpa now, that was probably early 1900s, you know, at the time they were alive, talking about the hill people, you know. So, yeah, I'm not the only one that sees them, I think, but most people out here with their experiences, they kind of just, they're afraid everybody's going to think they're crazy, I'm sure, you know. And so they just kind of, it's a very Bible Belt area, and they just kind of keep their trap shut and It's like my husband's own family that lived here before. I asked my husband, I said, did Grandpa ever mention anything? And he said, no. And he's thinking, a couple days later he comes back and he says, something really strange about a guy that was in World War II, that was a medic, that wouldn't go outside after the sun fell. He said, I just realized that Grandpa would never go outside after dark. So, Grandpa could have seen something at one point and just thought, nope, not going outside after dark now. So, I don't know.
And are you going to do another book in the series?
I've had a lot of people ask me that, and I was kind of like, the way I ended this one, I kind of left it at the point where I could write another one, or I might not. I really enjoy writing. It's hard to find the time is the big problem. We have more experiences that I could detail. It's just finding the time. So I'm going to say probably, because people are interested in hearing about it, and that's basically why I do it.
Has the UFO subject ever come up?
It's funny that you should say that, and I haven't really spoken of this until right now. My husband actually is the UFO guy, so we had kind of happened upon. Have you ever got to interview Dr. Stephen Greer?
I have not, but I know of him. I've never interviewed him though, but I know who you're talking about.
I love him. I think he's really cool. His documentaries Unacknowledged and stuff like that. And we ended up getting that app that he talks about in the second documentary. That's got like the tones that are supposed to basically, I guess, bring up the aliens. I don't know. And we had decided.
I'll have to check it. I'll have to look into that.
You definitely should.
And I haven't even heard about that. So there must have been paying no attention during that part of the movie.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. I will even get the name for you guys.
He's a controversial person. And
the New Yorker magazine, that really hoity-toity magazine, New Yorker, which I actually do subscribe to because I live in New York and am hoity-toity sometimes. It has a huge, huge spread this week. Like, we're talking one of the largest articles I have ever seen in the New Yorker about UFOs. And Stephen Greer and Leslie Keene are like all over it.
Let's see if I can find the name of that. Oh, it's CE5 Contact. So now they got an app that you can just call the aliens up.
Oh, cool.
Pretty cool.
I would have to look up his name, but I've had Stephen Greer's friend on, and he writes fiction books. He wrote a shark book called Meg, and let me see, I can find it, Meg book, Shark, and I should remember. I have terrible memory, so that's why I can't find it. But Steve Alton, that's who. He's a fiction writer, really good guy. He's friends with them. We got into UFO stuff a little bit, but that's about I've never interviewed Stephen, but yeah, I've talked to his friend, and I know they're pretty close, and I think down here in Florida or whatever. But yeah, I mean, UFOs, the disclosure word, I try to stay away from that word. That's like, still trying to get that. I guess my problem with it is the government's so corrupt. I mean, I don't know if they're ever going to come clean on everything. I mean, I think there may be instances where their government's pretended to be UFOs and done weird military testing and told the public it was UFOs. They're just dirty. So it's hard for me to say, oh, I'm waiting on the government to clarify this,
I agree 100% on that. I don't trust. Yeah. No.
But I've had personal experiences with UFOs. Wham has. I've seen stuff over multiple houses that I've lived at. I've seen some weird beings that I don't know what they were, but they could have came from UFOs. But that's why I do the show. And one of my big ones, I've seen beings of light many, many times. And, the UFO stuff, it's weird. But I definitely, that's one of the main reasons to do the show, because I've seen it. If I hadn't seen any of the stuff, I would probably not be doing the show. Once you see it, you get kind of addicted to it, and I couldn't stop
Mhm.
researching it and talking about it and looking into it, and it became an obsession, and it turned into the show. And here I am, 13 years later, gone completely mad. But anyway, here we are. The mess of
That's
us.
okay. We're all a little mad. Yeah.
Well, I forgot to tell the most important ending part of that story when I was talking about Gail and the infrasound.
Oh.
I don't know why I forgot this, because this is like an integral part of the story. What an idiot. I must be like way too tired tonight.
Oh,
but anyway, they were out there. They were out there and all this crap was going on. Trees were being pulled out and they were being hit by infrasound and sort of driven back, lots of noise, rocks being thrown at them. They were kind of yelling, because they were freaked out. And then all of a sudden she said, and I'll never forget when she told me this, because this was the moment that changed everything. This is why this is so important. All of a sudden, a blue light shot up from those woods into the sky, and everything went absolutely silent.
Huh.
Like instantly silent. And that was what completely freaked them out. If nothing else had freaked them out beforehand, that freaked them out. And so that they like ran back to the house. And she told me, she said, because I when I had first met her, and she was like so insistent that Bigfoot was just a physical being, just a, Gigantopithecus, whatever. And I was just asking her about stuff. I'd had my sighting and I'd kind of looked into it a little bit because I hadn't known that much about it. I'm a UFO person, like, for years, so I hadn't known that much about Bigfoot. I didn't really have much of an opinion one way or the other. And so I kept asking her questions about it. And I remember she was like, "Nope, I'm a good Catholic woman. And I'm not going to go in for all that weird stuff," right? And so when that happened and that light went up and everything, it was, when she was telling me about it, she goes, I don't know what to think about it now, but I think that you were right, that there's something else going on here, and it just really scared her. So now now a lot of times if there's like, if somebody's given her reports or something, and it turns out that there's some UFO or ghost kind of element to it in some way, because some people have like poltergeist things that'll happen. Mm-hmm. It's not that they will try to come into the house, but whatever house is being surrounded or affected, will have like weird crap go on inside. And if that happens, I'm one of the people that she will have come with me, because she says, the questions to ask them, and I guess it's because I'm not that scared of that stuff, but she's terrified of it. So maybe it comes from being the type of Catholic she was. I don't know, but no, that light shooting up into the sky and everything going silent. Yeah.
So they were Wookiees.
I guess.
Chewbacca. Yeah.
Chewbacca's. Space Wookiees. There's weird things, with them. I mean, who's to say some aren't physical? My co-host Jay thinks they're physical. He's seen one, and he will not come off of it no matter what you do. I give him hell for it. He thinks they're physical only. Who's to say some aren't physical? Then they die and they become like a spectral, like a ghost. So it could be those alive and dead ones. Who's to say, some aren't like aliens? And who's to say the Bigfoot, like the native people, the native hold the star people in reverence and do dances and, whatever, have secret stuff they know about them. The Bigfoot probably do too and have some connection with those stars, the sky people. So it's definitely weird. But if you look at native folklore, I mean, they talk about crazy giants and stuff. Some of those stories, the giants grab you and throw you in a spiked basket and eat you. One of my favorites is the hairy man and coyote story, which I don't remember the details, but I know there is one. It's like coyote and Bigfoot hanging out. I'd have to reread it, but I know there is one. That's a good one for sure.
That's true. They do hang out. I've seen it. They do. It's like they're dogs. Yep.
Have you seen?
They hang out.
Have you had any Dogman stuff?
No, and I always it's like the alien thing when we did the app and we actually had something happen, and then the Bigfoot got involved. It's like I try not to think about Dogman because I'm scared. And I heard a story about somebody having, it was on Sasquatch Chronicles, and it's actually not too far from where I live. And they're talking about this woman, and you could hear her voice shaking. She was still so afraid. I don't want anything to do with the Dogman people, and I hope they stay far, far away from here.
I've interviewed Linda Godfrey. She's gets into all that stuff pretty heavily. I know there's one town that she mentions. I don't remember where it is, but some sheriff, like they got all those werewolf stories, people reporting Dogman, and they got so many they like kept them like there in the office in a giant box or something. Some weird town, I forget where, but there's some interesting stuff. But yeah, scary for sure. I had one experience where I thought I saw a Bigfoot when I was a kid, but I wasn't sure. It was a weird experience. I was with this little bully kid, and we were hanging out, and we saw something, but I don't know if it was Bigfoot, if he was just messing with my head. But it was weird because I came home and told my mom, and the police came out, and I drew a Bigfoot, but the police said they went out there and spider monkeys escaped or something. So I don't know what the hell happened. I was very young.
Anything like Bigfoot.
True.
I started to say.
I was very young, so I mean, I was impressionable. So I kind of like, I don't know, iffy. Other than that, I've never seen one, but I've seen weird alien stuff that I'll never forget. Little cloaked beings in the woods. I saw a little weird fat Buddha kind of man that looked alive and gray, like one of those weird places statues you'd see in a Chinese restaurant. He was in my backyard, and he was like, it looked like a gray fat Buddha, and it vanished. It might have been my dad. He was a big guy. Maybe it was him in a spectral form or something, but it reminded me of like a statue you would see. Another time, reptilians kind of hologram like. I had some psychedelic usage with that one, but they were very strange. And that night, my brother saw red eyes in the woods, and this guy named Greg went nuts and tried to drive his truck in the lake and kill us like he was possessed. So that was weird. So it might have been something demonic. I don't know, but that was a crazy night. One of those fear and loathing.
Do you guys ever think that maybe?
Go ahead.
Do you guys ever think that maybe there's like, I don't know, and it's so crazy that the older I get, the crazier the experiences get. Do you guys ever wonder if there's like this veil dropping, and we don't know everything? We don't see all the sights. We don't hear all the sounds. It kind of feels like maybe, I don't know. I didn't know if you guys had opinions on that. If it's like we kind of get thrown into another realm for a minute and then everything cleans up like the Upside Down, or I don't know.
Oh, you mean like Stranger Things?
Yeah, kind of like that. Like if it just like we kind of slip over into something else for a minute. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think that there are times and places where there are, I don't know whether this matters. I don't know whether all of reality slips or whether or not for a minute my mind slips. I mean, what I mean by that is I'm able to suddenly glimpse another place. I'm not necessarily in it, like physically in it, but my mind can like maybe perceive things that maybe are always there, but because I'm focused in our reality so much, I don't see them. I mean, that kind of freaks people out if I say that, because they're like, well, does that mean that things are always like in your room? And it's like, well, maybe. I mean, if you don't see it, then you don't care, right? So it's like,
Right.
And they wouldn't necessarily always see you either, because sometimes I've had the experience where it's like I catch a glimpse of something and it's so surprised to see me, you know what I mean? It's like I suddenly appear to it. There's this guy named Paul Eno who we have interviewed. And he's a researcher, a paranormal researcher out of Rhode Island, and he's written several books. You might be interested in some of what he talks about, because that's sort of his working theory, is that there are many different sort of layers or levels or phases, I guess is a better way of putting it, to reality. I guess, they would be called, some people would have called them dimensions at one time, but that makes them sound like they're two separate, you know what I mean? And he has lots of really fascinating stories about people who have apparently encountered a real kind of like experiential evidence of this, and he uses this as a way of explaining certain types of ghost phenomena and possibly Bigfoot phenomena. He had the experience just a few years ago of seeing his first Bigfoot for the first time, and they were out in a place in Rhode Island doing something. Were they in Rhode? They were in Pennsylvania. They were researching a kind of a window area in Pennsylvania, and they were looking for UFO stuff and ghost stuff, poltergeist stuff. And all of a sudden, this Bigfoot, he was by himself in his truck outside in a moonlit field, and all of a sudden, a Bigfoot just started walking across the field in front of him.
Wow.
And he said that he felt this incredible sense of privilege,
Mm-hmm.
that he was seeing this, what he considered to be a truly magnificent being, because of how it was walking. He said it was just, it was like he was in a field where whatever the crop was like chest high on it. And it was just, he said it was just walking through this field gracefully, just so, there was so much ease and so much, he said it was just beautiful. And, but he has these really interesting sort of stories about, and theories about how our realities sort of move and bump. And and there are some beings in some of these other realities that are predatory, and they negative with regard to human life, and they're very interested in sort of latching on to people or causing fear. And the reason they like to cause fear, specifically, and these are not when they're defending themselves, that's different. But the reason why they like to create fear is that they sort of feed on it.
Right, I don't see that, like the dog man thing.
Yeah. But so you might be interested in some of it. Yeah, you might be interested in some of his stuff. His name is Paul Eno. That's Eno, Paul. He's got his books aren't too expensive, but he's got great stories in them, great accounts, good research.
I wrote his name down.
Yeah, good research. Really good. Did Jeffrey disappear? There he is. There you are.
See me?
We lose him?
Yeah. For a minute, there were two of you again, and then you went away, and so now you're back. So anyway.
I don't know what the hell's happening with this thing lately. It's not even. Usually Skype shows me when I'm on cam, and it's not. So I usually stare at myself, which is not good usually, but I usually do. But I'm not even on there anymore, so it's weird. I'm missing. It's gone. And then,
that's a good part.
That's good. And she's seeing two of me for some reason. So
yeah, I see two of him. It's very weird. Maybe I'm seeing the one you should be seeing for some reason.
I don't know what the hell's happening.
It's not that I need to see two of you or anything, but it's not. It's not terrible.
I would recommend someone else, and I'm sure Wham would agree. Artie Clark.
Clark.
Yeah. Artie Six Killer Clark. If you look, if her name's ARDY and then CLARKE, which it'll probably come up under that, but I know my middle name's Six Killer. But she puts out these books about, she goes from tribe to tribe, from North America to South America, and gathers star people stories on her own and puts them in books, and they're on Amazon, and you will be amused and amazed for sure. There's some good ones. She gets them from tribal people, and there's probably Bigfoot stuff in there. I don't remember, but there's all kinds of stuff. They're really good. And I need to see. I don't know if she's had anything come out in a while. But, I saw this just real quick off the cuff to tell Wham. I saw this video, this crazy place called Dark Outpost. It's this dude that makes videos, and he's always lying about crazy stuff. But anyway, he did one that said, Michael Aquino, where is the satanic cult leader? Is he still alive? And so I told Don Webb, I sent the video to Don Webb just to let him know. And Don Webb goes, yeah, I got him here on ice. We're waiting for the new monster so he can play Grandpa. But I was mostly just telling them because I was like, dude, these dudes are crazy. I'm just telling you for your safety because it mentioned, all that stuff. But anyway, it was just funny. But Lilith, I don't want to, I don't know how much you want to. Have your kids had experiences? I don't know if you want to get into that or not. If not, it's okay. But how are they taking it? How are they taking it?
Well, they love it. They think it's the coolest thing in the world. And the children, I keep a really close, I trust them, but I'm also now aware more than ever that there are so many things in this world. So I keep a pretty close eye on them. We had an experience this past fall where they were mimicking me. They were behind the garage, and my daughter's up waiting on the bus, my oldest. And they said, Maddie, come here. And they're talking in my voice. They're like, Lydia, come here. And she's like, guys, knock it off, And she told me about it. And I'm like, so I'm like trying to get the message through to them. Don't do that. That scares me. I don't want you calling my kids where I can't, and they've never done it again. So I keep kind of a tight reins and a close eye on them just because, I don't know. But the experiences that they have managed to have with me 3 feet away from them have been pretty cool. They've both had visual sightings. They both talked back and forth to them in the woods. They love it. They think it's incredible. And I have to watch my younger one because she is younger. So she doesn't really think that it's an odd thing. I think she thinks everybody has Bigfoot friends. So she'll like randomly say something and I'm like, we don't talk about that with everybody around, And she's like, why? So, yeah, I've never really felt they were any threat to my children because I think that they have a super strong sense of family. And I think that that might even be one of the reasons that they feel that their kids can run amok here and they're safe is because I don't, I'm pretty protective. And I think they're the same way with their kids and they understand that and they respect it. So, yeah, my kids love it. They're not afraid because they've been raised with, my oldest girl had a sleepover and she comes into my bedroom and she's like, Mom, would you please do something about the Bigfoot looking in the window in the family room? She's like, my friend is going to see it and she won't come over anymore. So she's seeing the red glowing eyes and his face is up against the window. And she's like, do something, Mom.
They like to look at children. I don't know what that, I don't know what that's about, but they seem to be really fascinated.
They do. I think maybe it's the innocence and they don't really have anything to fear from them as much as the adults maybe. Like a kitten maybe. They're cute, you just, I don't know. But you're absolutely right. They adore my kids. We've had a couple instances where when Ray was little, it's almost like a river that runs through our property. It's a really large creek, and it can get going pretty fast. And we cross it occasionally to get mushrooms and things like that. So we're out there mushroom hunting, and I noticed that there's all these, and she was little bitty. She was probably like 2. And I noticed there's all these mushrooms growing out of the creek bank. And I'm like, Brian, right there, go get him. It's in deep water. You'll be fine. So he's over there waiting in the water, and his hands are getting full. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to wade out to him. And it was still really cold. It's cold here in April, when you're mushroom hunting. The water's cold. And so I'm trying to get the mushrooms. Lydia's got a hold of Ray, and everything's fine. They're sitting on the bank, and then all of a sudden, Ray just bolts up right into the water. You know, she's 2. And it's extremely cold, so we freak out and run over there and get her out of the water. And we're all stripping off clothes and wrapping her up because it's quite a walk, and it's straight up from the river to the house. So they paced us all the way back to the house. They were worried, and you could feel it. They show concern for my children. I've lost good friends, family members, animals. Bandit from the first book ended up passing away, and that was really, really rough. And they knew it. They were right there. They offer concern. They'll bring me a pretty rock and set it on the edge of the porch. They care about us like we're part of their family.
Well,
I had to actually tell them to take all the food, you know, because they're concerned about our survival too. And I'm always like, guys, it's fine. Go ahead, you know. So, yeah.
And one thing I was wondering, I'm not saying this is the truth or not, when it comes to, maybe Wham can help with this, were there any native tribes that were like way back before, you know, the ones we know about with Geronimo and stuff that maybe could have resembled like a Bigfoot type thing, and maybe they could be spirits of them or something weird? Do we know of anything like way back in the day, way back, like something that maybe could resemble something like that? Maybe it's the spirits of the dead, and the veil's thinning, and they have powers or something. I'm just theorizing here.
Well, the only stories that I know of, I mean, that I've heard of, that I've heard some other stories, but that I can, you know, say anything about is, according to Barbara Alice Mann, who is a Seneca elder, you know, of the Haudenosaunee, we call them the Iroquois, one of the nations of the Iroquois. She talks about how, at least in some of the older stories, that there is that there are stories about a race, I guess you'd call them, of beings that had reddish hair and were very large and were cannibals. And they, according to the stories that I remember, she said that according to their stories, the ones they knew about lived in the Ohio River, the Ohio Valley, the area that we now call Ohio. And the reason why they're not there anymore is because there was a concerted effort on the part of the Iroquois at the time, and in alliance with several other native groups, to wipe them out, to kill them all, because they were dangerous and they would hunt humans. And
was that the Lovelock Cave incident or Love something Cave incident?
Well, this is a long time ago. I mean, this would be like thousands of years ago. And they said, and according to what she says, it's rumored that there were a few pockets of these beings that survived, like a few pockets that survived in the Northeast, like up where I live, and a few other places, but that they had mostly disappeared. So, you know, it's not anything recent. But they were large and they were hairy, and they were, but they distinguished those from what we would call Bigfoot now. They make a distinction between those and what we would, you know, so it's not like they were Bigfoot. They were a different species, a different race, if you will, whatever. But that, and she talks about how there are other native groups in some places, like in the northern plains, that have some similar stories, but I don't recall exactly right now what all they are. But that's what I know about that. Now who is it? The Ojibwe talk about a a group of people. I can't, and they've got there's a book. It's called the Mishomis book. It's a great book, by the way. It's a book that it gives you the sort of the basics of Ojibwe cosmology, but it's written really simply. Like, I mean, it's for adults, but it's written kind of in a format like it would be for kids. You know what I mean? So you get to like learn all the words and everything. But it's called the Mishomis book, and they talk about, the person who's written the book talks about the beings that they call Bigfoot, and that they were an ancient race descended from this one being, this original creation, who was associated with trees, and he could sort of like merge with the trees. You know what I mean? Kind of merge with them and go into the other world, and then kind of come out of the tree. It's very interesting, that the way that they depict that. And but they were an ancient race of people, or species of people, and they were like one of the first creations.
Is that book by Edward Benton Benai?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's a great book. In fact, it's like, if you want a primer on northern central Algonquin cosmology, which the Ojibwe is sort of like the center of that's the book to get, because it's really easy to understand, and it's just amazing. It's just done really well. It's an excellent book.
I'm gonna have so many books to get.
I'm making
a list.
And it's like it's stuff that has been that the medicine lodge, the Ojibwe have like a what's called the Medawin, which is it's a lodge of esoteric teachings that has survived, through colonization and everything. And so they have like secret ceremonies and stuff like this. But this is all stuff that has been agreed upon to kind of give the world. So
there's a weird movie with Kevin Costner in it, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's got real crappy reviews, but it's not bad. I've seen it. But he moves into this house, and this native weird tribe lives in his backyard. And they're kind of like lizards or something, but it's called.
It has like nothing to do with. Kind of like lizards.
The new daughter. That's what it's called, but it's worth checking out. But it reminded me of a weird tribe, but it's strange because you're like, what the hell is Kevin Costner doing in this horror movie? That's kind of weird. It's fun though, but it just reminded me of the long lost weird tribe stuff and all that.
So this is the book you got looked at, the Mishomis book?
Yes, sure is. I just found it on there.
Yes.
Saving it in email so I could find it later. Send it to me. So.
Well, it's kind of crazy because sometimes when they should leave like footprints, they don't. I mean, there is an element to them that's almost like they have this ability to blend in when they shouldn't because they're so big. I mean, there is a lot of things that and I think a lot of Bigfoot researchers miss out on things because they're not willing to consider these aspects of this, these people. They're not willing to consider it. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. And you kind of fall down the rabbit hole and end up reading quantum theory and,
I know there's a lot of trash Bigfoot shows, but there is one that's kind of been making some different kind of waves. Expedition Bigfoot. They've actually got weird, bizarre lights they've caught, and it's not cheesy. Like they seem really good. Because compared to the other crap that's there, they seem really great. But I heard recently, I haven't seen the second season, that they got a DNA hit and it actually came back as something strange. But there's some actual, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you come across that one's actually pretty good. And I know there's tons of trash for sure, but that one actually, I need to watch the second season because they got a weird, like maybe UFO, and they were there for Bigfoot, but they're kind of like, I guess, open to that too. And they're not like goofy and stuff. So, I mean, it's pretty good. But that's one checking out. I need to catch up on it, Expedition Bigfoot. And I also know the new Skinwalker Ranch show started back up. That show's a circus if you really want to be amused. Watch that one. That one is the secret of Skinwalker Ranch. What's so crazy about that, though, that's an area with a lot of activity and Bigfoot. But people on the show are getting real radiation burns and having to go to the hospital. One skull got messed up and like something bad happened. He had got very sick, had to go to the hospital. Like there's weird stuff. And now these people are on this show. Like it used to be owned by Robert Bigelow, but now Brandon Fugel owns it. And they openly announced that Jeremy Corbell did a documentary about it and openly announced that it was, studied by the government. And it's on the History Channel. But the last episode of season 1, they were basically letting in government spooks to share information on cam. So it's definitely, just for it's crazy because I believe they really are getting radiation burns out there. But there's also strange because there's some kind of computer that they call Satan there. And that's kind of weird. It's definitely a weird show.
Right.
Weird. Paired shows. That one's getting pretty crazy. But I know they just had like something about government people came out to talk to them, and they were talking about the last episode of season 1 to where they were going to share info with people from the government. But if the government still owns it, but I guess he owns it now, I don't know. But there's a lot of spookery going on there. That's why that's definitely one to keep up with. Hopefully no one croaks on there, but I mean, I don't trust it, but I think stuff happens there, but I still don't trust any of it. I would like to know what was it, Jacques Vallée? I always mess up his name, but the French ufologist, he went there. I want to know what happened when that dude went there.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Right.
He'll never say.
Yeah, he got government disclosures. But that's a good show on history. That place has got all kinds of crazy stuff happening there. Portals and radiation burns and Bigfoot and UFOs. And I mean, they've had a lot of phones go crazy. I have a friend, Ryan Skinner, that hangs out with those guys a lot. I've interviewed him before with Chip Plesher. But there's definitely strange stuff going on there. I heard there's a place like that in Florida, but I don't know where it is. They're keeping it hush-hush. But I know Stacy Brown and them know about it, and we're doing something there. Some kind of place, ranch, where there's a lot of weird activity. But I have no idea. Maybe in the Panhandle, but I don't really know right now. So I guess when it comes to the Bigfoot subject, Lilith, what do you hope to do in the future with it? I mean, I know you're going to do some more books, but are you getting a lot of feedback from people? Are they writing you and stuff?
Yes, it's crazy. I always feel weird. It makes me happy, but I'm like, well, actually, right now, it seems like the more I learn about them, the habit, predictability, they like that. So usually in the summertime, we eat supper outside, and I've noticed the last few nights especially, and I talked about the neighbor being called about another neighbor seeing one heading over this way, and so I'm going to try to just keep working on that relationship and keep the predictability up. I don't know if you guys have ever read Autumn Williams' book, Enoch. And that actually took place in Florida, from what I hear.
I've heard of it, but I've never read it, but I've heard of it.
Well, and that's kind of like, when I read that was a big comfort to me when I was feeling a little, because the first book I read, the woman I was talking about that lived close to a big city, she was terrified. Like, her books were written through, like, this lens of terror the whole time. She kind of seemed to view them as an enemy. And in Autumn's book, Mike develops this friendship with Enoch to the point that they sit down and eat together, and I'd like to get to that point. I'd like to get to the point where, I can sit with them face to face. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but that's actually my goal. And if I got to that point, I don't know if I would tell people about it. You know what I mean? Because I don't. I mean, I think there.
Well, it might be kind of sacred. It might be kind of sacred,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and that's kind of where, like, I wasn't sure if I'm going to keep writing. There are events that have happened that necessarily, and I've shared a lot. I mean, I've been very open about stuff, but at the same time, there's a couple of things that are just kind of too precious, you know? And that's where I want, my goal is about developing a friendship with these people, and that it lives on with my children, you know? Like I said, I'm getting older, but I'm out there planting fruit trees like crazy, because I always want them to have a place here, whether I'm here or not, you know? And that's kind of my thing, is just keep relationship building, you know, maybe get to the point we can try to have a conversation. You know, so far the only thing I've said face-to-face to one of them was, well, hello, good morning, because he just popped up right in front of me, and he just grunted at me. So kind of went, ugh. And I'm like, you know, would love to get to that point where I could actually do that, but I would always, their protection and their comfort is more important to me than any book or recording, or, you know, I just keep going in that vein, I guess. I'm educating people that are curious about it, and so many times they're depicted as monsters. It's like you said, the trash TV, you know, and they're not monsters.
No, they're not.
So I just
No,
don't know. I like to put that out
they
there.
live here. They live here. This is their home.
It is.
So
It is, and I just, Melba Ketchum did that study in the maternal side of it. I know she got kicked around for that, but I mean, I believe it. The maternal side of their DNA is human, us, Homo sapien, you know, and they're our cousins at the very least. You know, they have a lot, I think they have a lot more gifts and ability to harness the gifts, more so than we do even. But I view them as part of my family, so that won't change, hopefully, ever. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Just keep tracking, keep learning about them as much as I can. As people talk about being experts and stuff, I don't think anybody's an expert. You know, I mean, how could we be? We're all learning. I kind of look at them as like they're kind of my teachers in one way, and
right.
I'm teaching them another way, you know? So I know I feel very lucky.
Didn't you say something about a helicopter or something? Or has there been any government possible weird stuff anymore?
That's what stresses me out. The helicopter thing, really. And I try, like, that movie Goodfellas. Have you ever seen that, where the guy's like freaking out here in the helicopter?
Yeah.
I felt like that for a while. And I've heard stories about kill teams going in and just annihilating families. And some people have even said that the Patterson-Gimlin film was presented in one way, but there was something else going on. And I do worry about that. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I don't ever want to be the reason that they're pursued, and that they can count on them being here because I've said that, you know. So there are different times they come and go, but I don't really share that information. I know that sounds crazy, but they tend to have a pattern, but I'm not going to like be like, hey, because try to watch it.
I got something I just remembered that I'll tell y'all that I saw, and Wham will probably find this amusing. There's a new series on Hulu called Sasquatch. It's by the Duplass brothers, the guys that did Stranger Things. And let me tell you what it's about. I forget the guy's name, but his name's David something. But this guy is a journalist, and he's done serious stuff. He's infiltrated Nazis and, hung out with them, pretended to be them, and exposed them like Aryans and crazy stuff. Another weird thing that happened to him, he was assaulted when he was younger by someone sexually, a man. So he started writing about going to kill this man and stalked him and got arrested for it. But he's a serious journalist who heard this other story that took place. My God, now I can't remember. It's this place where there's a lot of weed that happens. Spy Ark, or something like that. It's like all these counties. It's in California. I'd have to look up the name. It's Spy Drop or something like that. But a lot of weed stuff. This is a documentary, and this is really happening. They sell weed like crazy there, and it's been going on since like the 70s. People come out there, Mexicans, hippies, and turf wars. They say there's been murders there, so many they can't even keep up with. Well, one night this guy was at this place, and there were tweakers, and he heard a story that they found some I guess they were Mexicans, 3 of them dead. And they said a Bigfoot killed them, and that the area had like their remains everywhere, and it turned into like a true crime story. So this guy heard that night, and I guess later on in life it drove him nuts so much he finally, went after it to find out what really happened. And it starts off with the possibility that Bigfoot did it, and he goes and interviews all these Bigfoot people that are in the field, and I forget who they are. I think Meldrum's on there. There's different people. But anyway, it turns out into a true crime thing, and it was basically, I don't want to give too much away, but it leads to, of course, human monsters. But it's a really good. It's 3 episodes, and it's a hoot. There's weed, there's Bigfoot, there's crazy drug dealers, and he's even getting scared being caught up all in it. I mean, it's worth the watch. It was really good. It's good, but it's called Sasquatch. It's on Hulu. There's some guy named Bigfoot Gary that looks like a Bigfoot that grows weed out there. But basically they say there's so many dead people out there, they can't keep up with it. The police can't keep up with it because all these people are like killing each other over weed. He says since weed's gotten legal, it's gotten worse. Like there's a black market, it's gotten bigger for some reason. But it's on Hulu, but it's definitely 3 episodes of fun and disturbing and Bigfoot. So,
I've got like a list of things to watch.
Yeah,
and
it's
read
called
now.
Sasquatch. But that guy got molested, and he was going to go kill the guy, and he wrote about it in like a big newspaper that he was thinking about killing the guy, and they arrested him.
Wow.
So that's serious journalism. But that made me respect him more, He's a good journalist. And I know he infiltrated like crazy Nazi stuff too, because there are pictures of him, and he infiltrated them and pretended to be them, and like I guess did their journalism on it or whatever. He's lucky he's alive, but it's definitely worth the watch for sure. So has anyone ever approached you to do more like episodes or TV or anything about your books?
No, I pretty much kind of had those off, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really want to give away, like, for instance, I say we're from the Midwest, and that's as close as I've ever got to really. There was some British guys that if they made their way over here, I offered to let them stay here out in the tent. I would have to record that from the inside because I bet there would be some funny stuff happening because I don't know. I do know that that was like I had encounters when I was younger and didn't even realize it when we were camping, because you don't necessarily know what you're dealing with. You see red glowing lights in the woods, you don't automatically think Bigfoot around here. We're not an area that's typically associated with them. So I try to be really careful. And I don't know if I was approached for something like that I would even want to, I kind of just, no thank you kind of thing,
The closest I've come to TV is Stacey Brown in my face in my house with a camera in Florida. And he's been on Finding Bigfoot, and he's been on all kinds of different stuff. But he lives in this area, and I was going to be in his documentary. But something happened with the audio, and it got messed up, so I didn't get to be on there. Like there was a technical problem. So that And that
Oh
was kind of
man.
that was kind of disappointing. But I smoked a doobie with someone for finding Bigfoot, so that was fun. But probably shouldn't tell that story too much. But anyway,
I didn't hear anything.
that was my yeah. But I don't really care about being on TV. It made me nervous. The night before I was up, I couldn't
Right?
sleep, and then you got a camera
Yeah.
on you, like your skin's crawling.
Yeah.
Stacey Brown looks like Jesus almost looking at you, Jesus of the South. It made me nervous. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm going to throw up. But for some
Right?
reason, the audio got messed up. And I was like, that's a metaphor for my life, let me tell you. And they didn't use it. But maybe that's
Right?
good. The government spooks didn't see me and put me on a list. So,
I know, right? I'm always like
yeah.
afraid. I'm like, Amazon has my social security number. No paranoia here, but yeah, I know what you're talking about because I get ready to go on this show, have an allergy attack, and then sound like B. Arthur, but we're rolling with it, you know.
That's right. It's good.
I love B.
Movie.
Arthur.
A movie that Letters from. Let me find it. Letters from the Big Man. This is a good movie about Bigfoot. It has Lily Rabe in it. She was in American Horror Story. It's called Letters from the Big Man, 2011. And it's different. It's I've interviewed this guy, but let me read the description. See full summary. The reviews could be better, but I thought it was good. Christopher Munch did it. Sarah Smith, an artist and government hydrologist, sets out on a post-fire stream survey in a remote part of the Kamloops wilderness of southwestern Oregon. In the course of her journey through this ancient and ecologically diverse land, she unwittingly finds herself interacting with a Sasquatch man, and a mutual curiosity ensues. As their friendship deepens, Sarah must take bold steps to protect his privacy as well as her own. And I know there's a weird helicopter scene in it. I remember that. I have it somewhere, but just kind of a weird one. That's kind of a strange one. I think it's on Amazon Prime or something, but definitely a weird little one. That's got I don't remember how long it is, but it's probably an hour and a half or less. But that's Letters from the Big Man. It's got a good
I'm gonna
Bigfoot
check
in it,
that one
though.
out for sure.
Has good
Is it based
Bigfoot.
on a true story or?
I don't know. I think the guy's had some Bigfoot stuff before that he's done, but as far as I don't remember. But I know I interviewed him in written form, but I don't remember where it is now. I don't think it's online. Oh, I found a weird thing.
They're prettier than they make up in most movies.
What about
they kind of they depict them, at least the tribes that I've seen and the people that I've seen, because it always kind of in movies they look so monstrous, I guess, and like the people that I've seen that I've interacted with, the children, they're beautiful. They're not scary. I don't see any, you know what I mean, like monstrous qualities other than they're massive. That always just kind of in movies, they're always kind of the way they depict them, you know. I mean, they're not like, you're not looking at like Brad Pitt or anything. It's not like that, but you know what I mean? It's just, it always throws me off that they make them look so scary.
Seem tribal, like, is that a good word? Very tribal, like kind of like a...
Very tribal, yeah. Yeah,
maybe like,
that's perfect because...
Yeah.
It's not something else.
I found an interview today that I did from New Dawn magazine with Stephen Strong. It's about the Aboriginals and Star People. It's on New Dawn's site. I didn't know they had put it up like on a page. It was in their magazine. But he said hanging out with them was like hanging out with, you know, extraterrestrials, just their mannerisms and the tribalism. Mm-hmm. So Bigfoot probably kind of like that on some level, kind of like, you know, Aboriginal or something like that, you know. Yes. Old school Aboriginal. But
right.
It was definitely tribal, I would think. But I've never seen one. Sometimes I don't understand why they appear to these people that seem like they would shoot them first and sell them.
Right.
Like some of the people you see on the documentaries and stuff are, you know, don't want to name any names, but like Justin Smeja and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody, and I
don't know if that's true.
I can't name names because I can't, but I talked to somebody who said, because I had mentioned that case because it was really they were talking about that a lot right when I started really like figuring out what I was dealing with. And the person that I talked to, I said, well, who knows if that was even true? And they said, no, that was absolutely true. And they live on that coast and had, like, through the Bigfoot network, you know, and I was like, wow. So they said he actually wasn't lying, but, you know, that was quite the case.
I know he was on the documentary and the DNA came back as a normal animal and he cried and stuff, but you never know with people. You don't know
Right?
who's telling the truth and who's not. You can guess, but until you're sitting right next to them and seeing it, you just don't know. I mean, you can guess and use your intuition and hope it's right, but you still don't know in the end. It's kind of like with dying. I mean, you can guess what happens, but you're probably not going to know until you die. So on that note, well, it's been great having you on the show. We appreciate it so much. I got to start closing out. Do you have a website or anything? Is it just on Amazon? That's the best place. And it's Don't Feed the Sasquatch.
Yes, that's Amazon. Please Don't Feed the Sasquatch, Volume 1 and 2. And I also have my YouTube channel, which has the recordings up, that you can actually hear them speaking, roaring, and then there's pictures. And I'm on Facebook, Lilith Gray.
All right. Well, we appreciate it so much. Thanks so much. And yeah, send me some of that audio. I'll listen to it or look for it, or if I can find it, and I'll check it out. But thanks so much, Lilith. Great having you on. We've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Have a good weekend. All
you
right,
too.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to United Public Radio. We got about 4 minutes left. And let's see here. Skype is so weird.
Oh, I know. It's driving me crazy.
They did something to it. I don't know. I kept hearing a little feedback noise. Did you hear that at all? Like
I heard some weird stuff a couple times, yeah, but then it would go away. It was like for me, it was like a weird little hum.
Like Bigfoot talking in the background.
A big little Bigfoot hum in the background.
I think it has something to do with phones. I don't think Skype likes phones anymore, or something, like real phones, or something. Because I've noticed it. I've noticed it with a few interviews, and it's just some weird little. Because it's gone now. So I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. But okay, she dropped and everything. It's like. I mean, I don't know. She's. I'm not gonna say she's not telling the truth. I don't know. I guess
she seems pretty average in terms of like the stories we've heard.
Yeah, it seems like something's happening for sure. But as far as, it's just hard when you don't see for yourself. And the same with my experiences, unless you're standing right next to someone. I'm trying to have Bigfoot experiences. I'd like to. But what I was going to say, why do they always appear to Republicans that want to shoot them in the face? Like, I don't
It's like,
maybe they're too trusting.
Well, daring them on, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so. But I know Justin Speeja, I written interviewed him, and I get all kinds of feedback at the Church of Mabus site about that. People pissed off about that. He's lying, and maybe he is. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's possible. But you just don't know. But yeah, that was a good interview. It was interesting, and it's sad that we have to hide ourselves from the physical ape people. The physical Bigfoot people, they want to beat us up because we're woos. They call it. I hate that. Like I don't even go to Bigfoot groups really anymore. I haven't been in any in forever. But you'll go. I've been in some a long time ago, and if you mention paranormal, it's like woo alert, and throw you out and block you.
I've never had that. I guess I've never joined Bigfoot groups, so I don't really care.
Don't. Don't. You'll get a woo alert.
Woo woo. Yeah, I would be woo woo. And you know me, I'm not woo woo actually. So I just don't worry about it.
We got like a minute off the cuff. When we croak, will we see our dead pets again? I don't like calling them pets. I don't like calling them pets. My dogs.
I'll put it this way. I think that love always returns in some form. We may meet our pups and cats, but they may not be exactly who they were when we knew them because they've grown and developed.
Yes. And that's it. Someone told me Jack will have a new body and speak in binary.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, and some part of him may hang out because I had this great cat named Lou, and in fact, I haven't had my own cat since him, and it's been almost 20 years because he was just too good of a cat to have another cat, of my own. And but he regularly appears in I mean, not so much in my dreams anymore, but I have him over his ashes over there. But I have like two friends that he regularly appears in their dreams.
Oh, okay, cool.
And he was quite a person. I mean, he was something other than a cat. He was just sort of a being, some other kind of being in a cat form. And I think that I'll meet him again. I don't know that he will look like Lou. You know what I mean? He'll
Yeah.
be something else or somebody else, but I'll recognize some essence of him as Lou. So
We've had some things here. I saw a little white shape move in the corner of my eye. She felt something on her ankle in the kitchen. I've seen me as a light being holding Jack, and he's kind of made of light. Like, I've had some weird stuff like that. So I've seen him smiling in my head, like that
yeah.
picture. Like, I
Oh
see him.
yeah, that's a great picture too, by the way, of his smiling
Definitely.
with all
That's a
his little
great.
fangs out. You
Yeah,
know.
for sure, for sure. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and have a great weekend. Keep on trucking. That's all we can do. Keep on trucking, baby.
Yep.
And then I got to drink more water because from tears, I think I dehydrated myself. That's what Christina said. I'm dehydrated from tears. All right, everybody. Thanks, Webb. Thanks, Joe. Everybody have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend. Take care.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye. See. Go ahead and close this out, I guess, Joe. My back hurts. All right.